In this tutorial, we will be looking at the notification bar included in the OctoMono app. So once again, we will start by dropping our element on the page, clicking beside the icon, and then accessing the elements dashboard by clicking on the dashboard button. In our elements list, we will be looking for the notification bar. And you can see, as with many of our elements, we got our settings on the left and our preview here in the middle on the right. So first of all, you can specify between devices whether you want to hide it. So you could hide it, for example, on those devices. But whenever you want to style it, make sure to switch it on right here in the editor. But for example, hide it on smaller devices because maybe it would take up too much, for example. So that's an option. It is not necessary to hide it because the element will work responsive, so this is just an aesthetic kind of thing you would want to remove. Anyway, so let's have a look. You could position it either on the left or the right, or you could position it at the bottom or the top. So I'm gonna leave it, for example, here at the bottom left. You can style obviously the element with by changing the background color. I'm gonna leave it to this light gray color. You can specify the border width, or you can simply remove it by setting this border to 0. I'm going to leave this to 0 just, and I'm going to include some border radius right here. So we can put it like this to 10, and then include a little bit of a box shadow, so that can look nice as well. So now for our dimensions, first of all, we got some vertical padding, which is the inner padding obviously, and some horizontal padding, which you can set. The element can be set to full width as well. Just like that, it will take up the full width of the page. And whenever you set an element, you can specify obviously its width. You can set it really tall and it will look full width, although it's not exactly the same. So if you really would like to use full width, make sure to specify the full width option. You can also make it smaller if needed. Those are just options. So I'm going to leave this to 500, for example. Now as for functionality, you can specify to whether show it immediately on page load, or if you would like to show it after an amount of scrolling, after an amount of scroll from the top the user has been going down, then you can obviously specify that amount. By default here it's set to 200, but you can specify that to the amount you would like. I'm going to show it on page load just. And then you can also have the option of adding a close button. Whenever you add a close button, the user will be allowed, or the visitor rather, to close that specific notification bar. Then you can style that closing button, that closing icon, in size and color. And then you can choose whether you want to show this specific element once per session, once per visitor, or always. Always is pretty clear that it will always show up whenever a visitor returns to that page. Whenever you want to show it only once per visitor, this will install a storage key. This has to be a unique name. You can set then your unique name here. We'll set it to storage key example, for example, like that. And the difference between per visitor per session is that per session it will only show it once a visitor is on your site per session, and whenever he's browsing, he or she obviously, between pages on your site, it will only show up once. But then when at a later point the visitor will come back, it will show up that same notification bar again. So in this case I will just leave it as always. Now I'm going to leave it per session rather, and like this we can use the storage key and we can show how that works. So now we'll save the element. We'll be taken back automatically to our Weebly page, Weebly editor, and you can see here that we have the option of dragging elements. I'm gonna drop a title in here and then maybe some text. and we could include a button or something. And then here we could say something like special offer, make that a little bit smaller, and then something like enjoy our greatest offer yet, something like that. And then you could include a button where it says get it now or something, just like that. Not gonna link it here or anything, but anyway, this is our element. So you can see that it will always be visible here in the Weebly editor, so you can easily remove it if you don't want to use it anymore, or simply modify its settings by clicking on it and going back to the dashboard. So let's have a look how it looks on the live side. So now we're on our live site, and you can see here at the left it will show up the notification bar we created. The user can click this away. Now whenever a user refreshes, you can see that it's not going to work, because this is actually included within the same session. And remember, we added that session key where we said only to show it once per session. So if you would have more pages here and a visitor will go to another page, come back to that same page where the element was added, then that element would not show up. But now we would grab the URL of this page, open a new tab just like that. Then you can see that the element is showing up again. So that's how the session works. If we would do this and specify a storage key, but for to show only once per visitor, taking that URL and starting a new session on your site would not show up this element. So this is how this element works. We can actually look and modify 1 second and to show how it looks when the element will show once per session. We can leave that, or we can leave it at always, it doesn't really matter. But instead of page load, we will add it after scrolling. In this example, we'll set it like show it after 100 pixels of scrolling down the page. And we will publish this example again as well whenever it loads. Yeah. So now live page. And now you can see at the loading that the element is not showing up here at the left where we specified it. But once we scroll down and we reach our 100 pixels, it is showing up. So now when we click it away, since we set it to show up always, whenever we refresh this specific page, you can see that it's showing up again because we specified to show it always. And that's how the notification element works. It can be used actually for more than only notification, because what it will do, as you have seen, is create a fixed element on your page. So you could include the element somewhere on the page where you can have maybe a call now button or something. So include just a button or some text with a phone number that would give direct access to make a visitor reach out to you, for example.